The next issue I want to talk about is the risk management. And risk, what's the meaning of the risk? Is a probability that some incident will cause damage to our business, and as a consequence of the damage, we will have loss in the organization, or to the staff of the organization, or to the assets, or to the reputation of our business, and it will, hinder the achievement of the strategy on the operational and financial objectives of the business. That's the reason I should know what are the risks on the field that we act, on the kind of business that we have, and if there are any measures in order to reduce the damage. I have to be able of defining the points of vulnerability of my business. For instance, I want to give you an example of vulnerability. If my business is based on mass labor, for instance, I have a factory and I have many people working for me, and if there is some disease, like sometimes some epidemic, we can find ourselves in a big problem. What other kind of vulnerability? Let's say if I base myself in the agriculture, I make some product based in bananas, and one year there is a big insect that eats all the bananas production in the country. What should I do? Am I prepared to that kind of incident? I have to be prepared for something like this. For instance, how can I prepare myself to make an insurance? You know that there are many kinds of insurances that sometimes we say, no, we can save the money. We don't have to insure ourselves for disasters of this kind. But this kind of insurance could save us in case of such vulnerability, almost brings us to bankruptcy. How unwanted events. Okay, let's see some of the risks. Regulatory non-compliance, reputation or image risk. Let's say that we sell a pizza, and some clients in front of the other clients comes back and says, I have a piece of glass on my pizza. Or I can give you an example of my private life. My wife's father is a doctor, and he had some expertise on acupuncture, those needles. And like 15 years before, or 20 years before, when the AIDS started, suddenly, one day, in the middle of the day, he heard about the AIDS, and nobody came again to this clinic. And it didn't take 1 year or 2 years to evolve this problem. In one day, suddenly, he didn't have even one client after working 20 years in acupuncture. Risk of illegal or criminal acts, supplier risk. That's a very good example. If we base ourselves only in one supplier and we buy only from one supplier. Why? Because we love him, because he gives us very good prices and very good qualities. But one day he goes into bankruptcy, and since we base ourselves only on him, we have to start to develop or to find other suppliers. Climate risk or human resources. Those are many kinds of risks that we have to think in advance in order to avoid problems. Opening a business, we are moving now to some new issue, requires endless paperwork. For instance, sanitary authorization. And I'm giving you an example again of food. And if our company carries out production, import, processing, packaging, storage, and sale of food products for human use, we must get some specific authorization by the Ministry of Health. That's only one example of the paperwork needed that we have to make in advance. Not rent some place and then start thinking about the formalization I need in front of all the institutes that give me all the permissions. Obtaining the municipal license. And now we will say a few words about the insurance. We have mentioned it already, and is a very, very, very important issue to cover ourselves, circumstantially, of course, and accordingly to the kind of business we have. Okay? We have the owner insurance, like in case of fire, if I was not prepared and I am not covered by an insurance, I can lose all my capital. Property insurance, personal liabilities, it's relevant, the personal liability, no, okay. For other circumstances like damage to somebody fall in our business and he broke a leg, and we have to make it up for him and pay him some indemnization. So we have to have some insurance for that. Professional liability. If I am a doctor, for instance, or an accountant, and I give wrong advice for somebody, and he lost all his money because of negligence, or you name it, or error, he can sue me, and it depends where you live. For instance, in the United States, it is considered to be one of the most important insurance they sell in the United States, since the sky is the limit. If you are a professional and you are sued for negligence, you can lose everything for that. And as I said, the sky is the limit there in their system. And there are many other kinds of insurance that we can buy. Okay. There is also important regarding the trademark registration. And I want to include on the definition of trademark the name of your company. You have to register it, and the registration of your trademark or your name should meet certain requirements. For instance, you cannot produce any soda drinks and call yourself Coca-Cola because it already exists. And you cannot call yourself, for instance, Aruba drinks, in case we are producing on the Caribbean, because as you see, signs that reproduce or imitate the shields, flags, emblems of municipal, provincial, and state, or the name of the state, you cannot call your business with the name of your state, and you cannot register a name or a trademark which is contrary to law, public order, or morality. For instance, I cannot open a business and call it Marcelo, let's steal together, or let's make a big chaos, or okay, because it's contrary to public order in this case. So you must take into consideration that when you register your trademark or your name, and you have to register, it cannot be contrary to law, public order, or morality. Okay, that's a definition of the trade name, that is a sign identifying a company in the trade, etc., etc. We see a few examples here. For instance, of McDonald's, the trade name and the trademark, including Burger King, Honda, and Volvo. Okay? And the last issue I want to deal with is registration in Chamber of Commerce or other institutes that might be in your countries as a legal entity, because every one of us that wants to open some business has to register himself as a legal entity. And basically there are a lot of legal entities, but we will see the most important that divide the registration in two main kinds. The first type of a company is a natural person that mostly professional people like doctors and lawyers and architects, etc., that base their business in some personal skill or ability. They open that kind of company, assuming by opening that kind of company all the rights and obligation of the activities exercised in the business. On the other hand, we have the legal person that is a fictitious person. It's only a name, that behind that name are the owners of the entity, but the person itself is fictitious, and it is capable of exercising rights and obligations, sue and be sued by anybody, including the owners. Okay, the owners work for that legal person, and they can even sue their legal person. There are many documents needed in order to make that registration. When we come to the Chamber of Commerce or some other institute, it depends on every country. And for instance, we have a proof of payment fees to the state. Everything costs money in order to register ourselves. The identity document of the person on a natural person case, and we're talking about the legal person, other documents that prove that we want to open such a entity, and other kinds of tax forms. And as I said before, I say again, all those regulations are specific, defined in every country. The most important thing to understand now and to remember is that by opening an entity, there are a lot of documents and a lot of legal acts to do in order to start the business and before starting the business. And as everything in life, each one of those definitions have advantages and disadvantages. For instance, a natural person, the first benefit is the constitution of that natural person is fast, with minimal documentation, no need for increased legal fees. It can be easy liquidated or sold. Everything is one hand. The ownership, the control, and the management is on one person's hand, and the enlargement or reduction of the equity is very easy. Those are the benefits or the advantages of a natural person. The disadvantages are that we have unlimited liability, that in order to guarantee the activities of the natural person, all the debts of our business will be covered in case of bankruptcy by our personal assets. Okay, this is a very, very important point that we should take into consideration. On the other hand, we may say, okay, but since I am only one person, I have very limited activities. It depends on you, but we must remember that all the debts will be covered by our personal assets. They can take our house, our car, our bank account, etc. The second disadvantage of being a natural person is that we will definitely have limited capital since only one person is investing. Banks will find themselves in the position of they don't want to grant you financial credit, okay? And the last point is there is a lack of continuity in case of incapacity of the owner. If the owner dies, for instance, the natural person business ends the moment he wants to leave, or he dies, or other kind of incapacity of running the business. The legal person, let's see the benefit of the legal person. Limited liability for the debts of the company, guaranteed only by its capital. It means that if the three of us invest $10,000, the maximum we can lose in case of bankruptcy will be those $10,000, and the government or the banks or the suppliers cannot touch my private property. Increase availability of capital, since many people are acting in that kind of business, many people are investing capital, and it allows us to run a bigger activities. Greater opportunities to access credits, and one of the biggest advantages that people really consider it is that the owner and the partner on that field, you cannot see it's hiding down. They can be workers of their own firm. They can get salary of that firm in comparison to the natural person that since he owns the firm, he cannot get a salary of the firm, only withdraw profit of the firm. But in a legal person, the owner and a partner of the legal person can get a salary of the firm. The disadvantages of the legal person, first of all, we have a greater difficulty to establish it, and we have to base our books on a double entry accounting, which is more complicated and it costs more money. There are greater restrictions to expand or reduce the equity of the company, which means if some new partner wants to join the company, or some existing partner wants to leave the company, there are some restrictions regarding it. It's more difficult. It's more difficult to liquidate or dissolve a legal person, and and that's it. Basically, we have other things that you will be able to see in my presentation that in our limited time we couldn't see everything, but the most important thing in opening a business is not being afraid to lose, not being afraid to basically to lose money, because everything loses. I can tell you, for example, if I talk about some policy in the United States, I heard a friend that told me that he sent his CV to one big firm in the United States, and he wrote that he had a business and he went into bankruptcy, and still they hire him, and they told him when he came, they told him, aren't you surprised that although you went in bankruptcy, we are hiring you? And he said, yes, indeed, I'm surprised. And they told him, you know why? Because we think it's better to take something that knows that failure is definitely an option. Not all the time we can write in the book of our lives that we have great success. Some you win, some you lose. But what all of us must do is lose, not to be afraid of trying things. And this is a tip that I can give you. Another tip that you have all the time to be alert, and all the time to study, and all the time to compare yourself, and all the time to make an analysis of your business and try to improve your activities, and not instead of thinking, okay, everything is running according to my expectancy, I can keep doing the same or more of the same for 100 more years. No, we should be all the time on the edge, looking around. And I want to thank the Yapt and Arturo for giving me this platform to share with you some interesting and useful things. And now, if you have some questions, Arturo.
Thank you so much for your words, Marcelo. I think this topic is definitely crucial for the entrepreneurs who want to start developing their projects and ideas. A business plan will let us find strategies that we can implement for the improvement and efficiency of our inside and outside processes of our business ideas. So, as you said, I think now it's time for us to pass to the section of questions and answers. We have received some of them. I'm going to start reading, and after each of them, I will give you the floor so you can answer. The first one says, how can I successfully identify the needs of the market? Is there any strategy for that?
Well, that's a very wide and and big issue, the needs of the market, because we have to identify first of all what is the segment I want to act in, because there are many segments in the market. I cannot use what we call the total market and say that I want to sell to the all markets. First of all, I have to identify the segment I want to sell to, and then there are many ways of identifying the needs. Just a second, sorry. One of the best ways is by survey. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it properly. Um, like for instance, if I go again to that example that I want to sell ice cream, some special ice cream, and one of the strengths of my business is that I have a raw material very cheap. So I can go to supermarkets. If my product is selling ice cream, I can go to supermarkets and offer people to taste what I want to do. This is one of the ways, but it's a very complicated issue to speak about marketing and identifying needs of the marketing. So I am afraid that I will not be able to answer in a few minutes that question. Sorry.
It's okay, Marcelo. Thank you. Our next question says, regarding the danger we have by sharing our ideas, once we had the pitch elevator with the person we want as a stakeholder, what is exactly the information of our business plan that we have to share with him?
You mean in case of some alliance with another business?
Yes, I think.
Okay, if I understand the question, you are talking about a strategic alliance with another business. I think that in this case, it's a kind of negotiation. I haven't got a formula that I can tell you what will be the proper things to share and to obtain from the other side. What I do what I really can tell you is that is a kind of negotiation. In that negotiation, it's based on your needs, because every side has some specific needs. For instance, I am going willingly to that alliance because I am not having capital enough. On the other hand, he is coming to that alliance because he thinks that that my staff have skills and abilities that his staff has not. And as part of the negotiation, I have to find the way of obtaining the biggest profit for me. It's every kind of negotiation. For instance, it's like I want to sell a car, and it's also a negotiation. It relies in so many things, that negotiation, that you have first to analyze what do you want to obtain by this alliance, and then start negotiation. And you know, as in every negotiation, you have to start very, very low and give and give the minimum you can give to the other part, and the other side will do the same. As you will get some approach of you know, all the time giving up some one more point in order to meet in the middle somewhere.
Okay, thank you. Our last question, I think, is how related is the fact that the liquidity of a business affects directly the control that we have of possible external changes and unexpected situations?
Again, please, again.
Yes, sure. It says, how related is the fact that the liquidity of a business affects directly the control that we have of possible external changes and unexpected situations?
Wow. That's a very peculiar question. Okay. First of all, if we understand what is liquidity, liquidity is the most important source of vital life of our business. Liquidity is having enough money to run our business. And obviously, a lack of liquidity will affect directly our profit level, because having a lack of liquidity means we will need external capital constantly in order to make everything in our business. Lack of liquidity may be caused by many things. For instance, having invested a very short amount of capital at the beginning, or having lost for many years, and that loss has consumed part of the money of the business. Anyway, I'm coming back from the what I started with, that a lack of liquidity will bring a big difficulty of running the business, and we will very fast find ourselves needing big money to run the business. And that's the way it affects the business, because if I had enough capital, I wouldn't need the external money.
Okay, Marcelo, thank you. Well, so far I think these are the questions that we have. Let's wait a few seconds more so we can know if there is another question. No, I think that's it. I think that was our last question. Thank you so much for joining us today. We remind you that there will be other webinars scheduled for the next weeks. So we kindly invite you to register to all of them. Marcelo, thank you so much for sharing with us your knowledge, and thanks to the audience for having us today.
Thank you very much, and have a nice day and a nice weekend.
Have a nice day there. See you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.